Paul Bibby, who is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Akora Resources.
Oh, thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Minister for Mines of Madagascar for being here today with his team. He's brought a number of colleagues, and pleasingly in his talk there was some good pieces of news, which is a great encouragement for the Australian mining companies that will be presenting this afternoon. Akora Resources is iron ore for tomorrow's steel makers. Oops, which one? What's happening? Okay, I think we all understand the disclaimers. Madagascar is a mineral-rich country, as the Minister highlighted to us. Rio Tinto is there with their mineral sands, titanium dioxide project, Sumitomo, and the Koreans are there. But there's a large number of exploration projects right across the country with the green dots. And as he mentioned, there's graphite, there's lithium, there's iron ore for ourselves. There has been NextSource in the operating space. NextSource is graphite. They've been producing in the last 12 months. The Chinese are there. The Romanians are there looking at developing a uranium project. This has all happened in the last 12 months since the mining code has been released. So there's a lot been happening under the watch of the Minister. Akora has 4 large tenement areas, all iron ore in Madagascar. Our East Coast projects, Tana Marina, are classic banded iron formations, as you find here in Australia. Our flagship project is Bekisopa in south-central Madagascar, amongst the other projects which are either graphite, mineral sands and the like. And because of those projects, we're seeing quite a bit of investment and improvement to the infrastructure and the roadways in that southern part of Madagascar, which will be very helpful going forward. Why have we focused on Bekisopa? Bekisopa has significant outcropping iron ore, rock chips grading 67%, as you can see in that photograph on the left-hand side. Beneath that is a very high-grade iron ore weathered zone, where we're seeing lump and fines iron ore, as you can see in that right-hand photograph, up there in that trench, and the nearby drill hole grading 66%. These are terrific grades when you consider that the benchmark grade for iron ore is 62%. As mentioned in the introduction, Akora has been listed since December of 2020, so just coming up to 4 years. In that time, we've had 5 drilling campaigns along that very strong magnetic anomaly, some 6 kilometres long. The first 2 drilling campaigns delivered the maiden mineral resource of some 200 million tonnes from only drilling on 20% of that 6 kilometre strike. The drilling campaigns since then have been focused on the direct ship iron ore, to build the tonnes for the scoping study and the current pre-feasibility study that's underway. The last drilling project for DSO tonnes completed in June, and we expect some more assays and therefore more tonnes to be added to the pre-feasibility study in the coming months. The next 2 slides show some cross-sections of what the ore body looks like. In the northern section, we have a weathered zone where we're seeing very high grades, around 64%, 6 metres to 15 metres in different parts of that northern zone. Below that weathered zone is a very rich magnetite iron ore body, grading around 38%. We've drilled that down to 300 metres at this stage, but we expect it to go well beyond 300 metres. And that magnetite ore body upgrades very readily to produce a very clean, high-grade concentrate for what's called direct reduced iron pellets, which is the future of iron ore as the iron ore industry decarbonises. In the southern zone, the cross-sections are a lot flatter. We still see the high grades at surface, the 64% and the like. We can mine that without having to remove significant amounts of waste, if any at all, and produce lump and fines iron ore for traditional blast furnace steel making. And then again below that is a very rich, high-grade magnetite iron ore body. Our plan for Bekisopa is development in 2 stages. The first stage is a traditional mining, crushing, screening operation, produce lump and fines iron ore for the blast furnace. This project is a very low capital cost project, a very good entry project to get underway to generate cash. The production will only ramp up to 2 million tonnes initially, but as we do more drilling, we can see that production tonnage increasing and the mine life increasing. We've used $100 per tonne iron ore price in the scoping study, and that's given us a payback of 2 years and very good economics and a very strong cash flow at 2 million tonnes per annum, generating pre-tax cash of $100 million. So it's a very sustainable, very strong project. So why did we choose $100? If you look at the iron ore price trend graph there, the last 6 years, the average price has been $118. So reducing that by 15% or so to 100, we thought was fairly sensible. For the last 9 years, the average iron ore price has been $100. I think last week it might have been 98. I think today it was 107. So it's still a very strong price, and it's underpinned by growth in India, which is one of the world's fastest growing iron and steel producers, by the renewable energy push that's happening around the world, the global infrastructure upgrading and renewal that we're seeing, but also the decarbonisation in the steel industry will push for even higher iron ore prices going forward. So that's why we chose $100. That's what our scoping study economics have been based on. And as you look across those key numbers on this slide, you will see that the economics are very strong for a 2 million tonne per annum project, initially for 5 years. Last year and this year's drilling will add another couple of years to that mine life. A capital cost of only $55 million to get underway. So very low capital entry price, generates significant cash, good NPV, and importantly, that's done at a C1 cash cost of $42 a tonne. So it's a very, very low cost, competitive operation to get into mining of the iron ore in Madagascar and use the cash flow to fund the upgrading that's needed for the future. We have a pit to port solution. The project that we have at Bekisopa in central Madagascar is in a very isolated region. We need to create about 50 kilometres of road to head south towards our Satra Cara project, and then there's the all-weather road which leads to the National Highway RN7, a bitumen road to the coastal town of Tuliara, which is where we're looking for our stockpiling and ship loading facilities to be. Pleasingly, from Bekisopa to the coast is a decline from 1,000 metres to sea level. So we've got to make sure the truck's brakes work, but that's certainly going to help the transporting by road to the port. It's 360 kilometres. That sounds like a long way, but here in West Australia, we're already trucking iron ore, some 400 kilometres and 600 kilometres each way to the port. So it's not such a challenge. Stage 2, after 6-8 years of mining lump and fines iron ore, which is the photograph on the left, that's the sort of lump and fines that we see at Bekisopa. The aim is to add additional processing capability and produce a premium priced, direct reduced iron, high grade concentrate. We'll need to add grinding circuits, we'll need to add a solar field for power, magnetic separation circuits, and produce a 68-70% iron product with very low impurities, which I believe will be sought after by the green steel industry of the future. Steel is critical in all elements of society. We want the graphite projects to be successful, the lithiums, the battery metals to be successful, because they need iron and steel for their extraction, their processing, and their development into products. The iron ore contribution to growth in Australia but across the world has been significant, and as you can see in this slide, which is the growth in steel production over the last number of decades, it has been continuous and very strong. And expectation is that we'll grow to 2.7 billion tonnes of steel production by 2050. That increase in steel production requires, by 2050, 1 billion tonnes of iron ore to be produced and shipped around the world. So we're going to need more from West Australia, we're going to need a lot more from Simandou, and there's more than enough space for Akora to play a part in that growth. And as I mentioned before, the decarbonisation and the electrification of our industries, of our power circuits and the like, are going to require a great deal of demand for iron ore. So what is green steel and what is direct reduced iron? The traditional iron making process uses the blast furnace and coking coal, powered by coal-fired power stations generally, and that generates 2 tonnes of CO2 per tonne of iron or steel that's produced. It's one of the largest producers of CO2 gases across the world today. And then from that, they refine it to make steel products. To go green, we need a large amount of renewable energy, whether that's solar power, wind power and batteries. Then we need to produce direct reduced iron pellets from a high-grade, very clean iron ore concentrate. At the moment, that's done in a number of countries around the world using natural gas, but ultimately, if you could use hydrogen, it becomes 0.1 of a tonne of CO2, which is a significant improvement. That then gets processed through an electric arc furnace to make steel. And that's what's the difference between the current process and green steel. The forecast demand for that direct reduced iron going forward is a 10-fold increase in the production. In 2020, the production was some 90 million tonnes, and by 2050, the production of high-grade concentrates, low in impurities, will be around 900 million tonnes, so there's plenty of room for that. And this can only be produced from magnetite iron ore deposits, which we have a very significant one in Madagascar. So what is the Akoras Advantage at Bekisopa and our project there? Looking at the graph on the left-hand side, the first advantage is that our grade, our head grade in the deposit is very high, 35, 40+% iron ore in that fresh rock, well above current developing projects and operating projects around the world, which range between about a 15% to 25% iron ore grade. That means we have got less mining, less processing to produce a tonne of product from our higher grade Bekisopa project. The middle graph looks at the important characteristic of the iron grade in the concentrate. It needs to be above 67% for green steel. At 75 micron grind size, we can produce a 68, 69, 70% product very readily because of the coarse iron mineralogy that we have at Bekisopa. The other projects on that graph there, they're grinding to 40 microns and less, which has a significant increase in capital and operating costs compared to what we can do at Bekisopa going forward. And importantly, to the best of my knowledge at this time, we're the only project that can meet the DRI impurity levels of less than 2.5% for combined silica and alumina. All the talk so far has been about Bekisopa, our first flagship project. Earlier this year, we announced the magnetic survey results from walking the 10-kilometre strike at Satra Cara, 40 kilometres closer to the port. And what you can see in this image is a very strong magnetic anomaly, 10 kilometres long, 2 kilometres wide in the south. We'd recently just completed the first 5 drill holes at Satra Cara to 100 metres each, with 75-metre intercepts of mineralisation, and we're expecting those assays in October of this year. So very encouraging potential and increase in exploration tonnes and eventually production tonnes going forward. What I've spoken to so far is the geological advantages of Madagascar's iron ore project at Bekisopa. The geographical advantages is that Madagascar is close to the African steel makers, but importantly very close to the Indian steel makers. Last year, India produced 130 million tonnes of iron and steel. By 2030, they're going to produce 250 million tonnes, and they're going to need a hell of a lot more iron ore, and Madagascar is well placed to deliver that. We're also close to the Middle East, where presently they use their abundance of natural gas to convert high-grade iron concentrates into DRI pellets, so potentially another nearby market for product out of Madagascar. Since being there over the last 5 years, we've always consulted with the community. We've let them know when we're coming, what we're doing, and that's worked to our favour. Every time we've drilled, walked the ground, we've taken the local people with us, and they've learnt skills, and they've certainly enjoyed that, and they want us back often. We've contributed to education programs, to medical programs in the local villages, and 2 years ago we drilled a well and produced clean water for the nearby Tanamarina village, some 20 kilometres from our project site, clean water for the first time ever, which was well received, and we noticed health improvements in that community in the first 6 months. We've got a very strong board. We've changed the people over the last 12 months as we've moved from an exploration company to a project development company. Graham Hunt is our new chairman. Graham's here today. Strong career in BHP, including president of their world iron ore businesses for 5 years, based here in Perth, and oversaw considerable expansion of the BHP iron ore operations. Matthew Gill, a mining engineer, has developed 4 mines, strong financial, and Jason is our General Manager of Projects. Quick look at the corporate snapshot. We've got a very simple, clean company, only 120 million shares on issue. Over the last 12 months, our share price has remained pretty flat in what's been a pretty tough junior mining market at around 15 cents. In the last few days, we've been trading at around 11, and the top 20 shareholders hold 62% of the company's shares. They've been very strong, very loyal, and the biggest shareholders at 19%, an investor in Queensland. The Akora Advantage, I hope I've demonstrated to you this afternoon, is that we have a very substantial and a very sustainable competitive advantage. The first opportunity is the DSO startup project, a very low capex project, a high margin because of that low cash cost, and will generate strong cash flow, which will enable us to develop and fund the premium second stage of development of Bekisopa, where we produce the high-grade, low-impurity concentrate for the decarbonisation of the steel industry. Thank you very much for your time.